Hi guys, and welcome back to the Hot Seat. I am your host, Priscilla Moy, and we are here live in real time at social media shows. I hope you enjoyed that amazing and gracious interview with the beautiful Julia. Everything about her just radiating positivity and talent and art. But we are going to switch over to another talent. Now, he is extremely dynamic. There's so many things to unpack with him. He's an MC, he's a host, he's like a journalist in so many ways. He's a world traveler, he's an adventurer, he's an actor, a photographer, a voice actor, everything that has to do with a microphone, I'm pretty sure he has done. So everyone, please welcome the amazing and professional Madison Alexander.
Let's
Hello.
go. Priscilla, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What an honor. Great to be here.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
It's an honor to have you here. I'm like nervous, like, oh my God, we have an actual like host and TV personality for like over 20 years. And I'm like, oh God, he's going to be like, this girl is a noob.
Honestly, you did so well. I was listening to your last interview in the back. It was really great. And like when you did the, lead up to it, there was like no stumble. It was like a one take wonder. It was definitely impressive. So
yeah, and I pull that out every time. I'm like, I don't plan it. I know sometimes like, you probably know it's worse when you try to plan something and not as genuine. I'm
totally, and I think the anticipation of stuff can get to you sometimes. So like being in the moment, so a lot of times just kind of reads better for people. It feels more authentic. It comes off better. But there's a time and place. Sometimes you want to be memorized, but you know, I think you being in the moment, impromptu, is about as good as it can get. That was
Thank you. So now you're a West Coast guy. You've been, California and Vegas.
Yeah.
You've been here for quite a while, right? And
yes.
I know that you've always been into media and communications. That is, I believe, what you had studied here at UNLV.
Correct.
So tell us where that love for all of this came from.
Great question. So to be honest, I feel like I was truly born to do what I do. And I think it started at a really young age. So the first example that I had in my life, and by the way, what I do for a living is I run my mouth for a living. I engage audiences. I make people shine. There's so many terms for it. It's corporate presenter, hype man, live event MC, on-camera host, moderator. There's so many terms that people use, or even like game show host, to try to describe all these various things. But it's basically communicating with people, right? And I think that the way it all started is I'm the son of a preacher man, so my dad's a minister, definitely not my path, but he led the way for me seeing someone impact people, truly bringing people together through speech. And I think that's what it's all about. I mean, for you and anyone out there listening, you know that feeling when you're in an audience. It could be at a concert, it could be even in class, whatever it is. And that feeling of, it's often overused term, but that feeling synergy, it's this real thing where you are basically one organism with the audience. You guys are all in one kind of organism, you're all together. And I feel like a lot of that is because of the speaker. So the speaker, it is not all about the speaker. The speaker is just that conduit for synergy that brings people together, brings excitement, and makes people feel that collected energy. And for me, that was very addictive. When I saw that as a kid, I'm like, wow, there's something magical about this. So the way it started, I would say, in high school, I did like speech and debate, right? That's something that I loved. I did a little bit of competitive speech at tournaments and stuff. And I'm like, maybe I'm on to something a little bit. And then what really kind of changed my game, I think, and really got me thinking, when I was in 10th grade, I was not the most popular guy in school by any means. Like, I was a pretty outgoing person, so I think most people knew who I was, but I certainly was not in the most popular group. And I've, another thing too is I've dealt with my whole even career, even as a kid, I had social anxiety, all these type of things, but I still had this desire to communicate that would, inspire me to go over my fears, go past my fears. So in 10th grade, a buddy of mine came and was like, you should run for class president. You should do it. I'm like, really? So he basically convinced me to run for class president. And this was insane, an insane thought, honestly, at the time, because there were already 2 gals that were running, and it was like the most popular girls in our class. It was like the one that everyone thought was like the hot girl, and then the one that was like the smart girl. So I'm like, oh man, I don't know. And they had these elaborate campaigns and all the stickers and all the posters, and had been at it for a long time and building their coalitions. So I jumped in the game pretty late. I announced my candidacy, if you will, probably like a week and a half before it was time. And I made like a couple silly posters and a couple flyers. But I wrote this speech that was really impactful, okay? So I was so scared. To perform this speech, we had to go in the cafeteria in front of every single person in our class at the time. I mean, I could just thinking about it right now, I'll start sweating. I mean, my heart was just pounding out of my chest. You have no idea. And I'll tell you this, I wasn't able to finish my speech that day because there was so much applause that I went over time and I couldn't finish because of the applause. And when I finished that, I went home and I got the call later that day that I was now the new class president of my class. It let me know that there was power to words and there was power to bringing people together. And that's what really inspired me. So later on, I was doing a lot of random jobs. I was doing high-end fashion when I was, young. I thought I was going to be like merchandise marketing. I thought I was going to be in the marketing side of fashion. I worked at a sales associate at Gucci and Armani, and I was at Gucci and the Bellagio like three months after they opened. And for me, that was like, wow, this is really cool. And I was just kind of learning how all this stuff worked. And then, I'm like, maybe I need to study journalism. So I started, I went to UNLV. I was taking some journalism classes. And in the meantime, here, it's all indirect how this stuff started going. I started doing a little modeling and acting locally. Now, granted, this is not Milan, right? This is not London.
Right.
So it's not like, this huge model or something. But I was getting gigs. I was getting a lot of print work for the casinos around town, doing some fashion shows, things like that. And then one day it all came together where one of my agents I saw was hiring a professional MC for a live corporate event. I said, that's interesting. How does this work? I never even heard of this whole industry or anything like that. Never even thought about it. So I told my agent, I'm like, hey, I love speaking. I've studied a bit of journalism. I have a history of speech. I would love to do this. Please get me in. So she set up a profile on the site, did all this stuff, kind of honestly built me up to be a lot bigger than I was at the time, to be honest. But that's what a good agent does, I suppose. And I got lucky with my first job almost 20 years ago speaking, and it was for Samsung at CES, the big consumer, electronic show. It's the largest trade show in North America. And I got to do the main speech in the big booth where they're showcasing all the new stuff. And that was my first time speaking for money. And since then, it's taken me all over the world. It's taken me all over the U.S. And I've been able to impact and connect with, at this point, tens and tens and tens of thousands of people. And it's a true passion for me at this point. It's a passion move. It's a passion.
You had that kind of voice anyways that you would hear on the local news channel. And then a question I want to have for you is, I've met people who've done radio hosting and things like broadcasting. And you kind of stuck more to hosting, game shows, live presentation, things like that, television. For you, why did you go down the path of a reporter? What's the difference for you, and where does that love for choosing this side of journalism, as we might call it, versus going and just being a straightforward reporter, newscaster, things like that?
It's a great question, to be honest with you. I became jaded with the industry of journalism. I started learning, I love the concept. I had these delusions of, not necessarily delusions of grandeur, because it could have happened, but what I imagined journalism to be, I was like, I'm going to be a war journalist. I'm going to be embedded, I'm going to have the Kevlar on, I'm going to do this, or, I'm going to expose some big corporate speak like Enron or some corporate secret or, something that really changes the world, like big tobacco and this type of thing. And as I started learning more and more, I realized that the path to get there was, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of, I don't want to speak too negative on it, because a lot of people have gone through that path and gone far, but it's a lot of politics to get there. And a lot of it is move to Nebraska and, small market and work the graveyard shift and make $20,000 a year perhaps, and hopefully you can eventually get somewhere. So once I saw that was how the industry worked in a lot of ways, I was like, I think I just lost interest in that. I Yeah, lost a little interest. But when one door closes, another door opens. If you're really passionate about it, so I'm fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I didn't go on that path. But who knows? You never know. Maybe it goes,
You can have
180.
a segment on a news.
You never know.
That can keep your
Totally.
Because you're able to maintain your own personality right now. Like when you do a lot of the hosting, you go on television, you do a lot of things, you go places. You're going to be them as yourself versus under maintaining a very strict. You got to say it like this. There's no sort of expressing you as a person instead of that. So maybe I feel you're very boisterous, you're very dominant. I feel like for you this is a great choice because you still get to travel and do a lot of things that a lot of journalists get to do, which is going to other countries and getting the news right then and there. You've gone and with celebrities and going on their tours, a lot of that stuff. And what has been the most impactful interview or job, something that you've done where you've taken a lot back and kind of defined your career as a whole?
I think there's been a lot of those, to be honest. And in fact, after you do this and you've been in so many cities and so many shows, a lot of it starts running together. But there have been a lot of key things of where there's a lot of like high-level people that you have to interview or connect with. One thing that just popped in my head as you're asking me right now, I remember one of the presentations I was giving for Samsung years ago. They told me that Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, was about to come to my presentation. And I've heard of this guy. Like, this is a legendary guy, billionaire, and I'm like, okay, but I didn't know what he looked like at the time. And it was just really interesting to me. So this like entourage showed up, and it was about 20 people, and like everyone was wearing suits. And I figured out who he was pretty quickly because he was the one person in that group that was not wearing a suit. He was like super casual. I'm like, man, and this is the billionaire that make the technology that we use like literally every single day. That's really wild. But there's been so much stuff interviewing like NFL Hall of Famers like Steve Young and Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and a lot of these guys. Introducing big CEOs of companies, Fortune 100 companies, like the CEO of Cisco I just introduced a couple weeks ago. There's just so many people like that that I've been able to interact with, and my life in general has kind of been around that. Like I used to be a model for will.i.am, from the Black Eyed Peas, for his clothing line. I was like their main model for a while, and I was able to work with Michelle Pfeiffer, like helping her pick out outfits and stuff like that. So there's like a lot of name dropping type of stuff that I can do. But to be honest, I think the most impactful stuff for me is to bring excitement to people and make them the star that normally wouldn't be. Right. So I like a lot of audience interaction. I want to know where people are from. I want to hear their stories. I want to, go back and forth with them, make them shine, find out their name, throw back to them later, in the show. To me, that's the fun thing because we already know these other people. You can just Google some of these names and it's already there. But when you can make just a random person in your audience the star for a while, that's the key. Yeah. And that's a ton of fun, Yeah. One thing that just comes to mind real quick when, just memories of things that happen out there is I think that's what's really important is it's about oftentimes to me when things go wrong, not when things go well. So one of my favorite memories is just a low-key thing. So I was in Cologne, Germany, debuting some new camera technology. And this was very much high-tech, like big deal stage. It looks like the Apple premieres where they're going to, premiere all their stuff. They have the huge screen and you're standing there. And I had a co-host as well, but I was the first one to go. All the media sitting there, all the cameras are there. Everyone's waiting for this big product reveal. And we're set up, we're ready to go. And I step on stage and I start speaking and everything behind me freezes. The entire massive screen setup completely freezes. And we're there. So in a moment, I just took a second and I said, hey, we're having an issue with our screen. Why don't I just sit here and tell you about this awesome technology, and then we can see if we can get this back up. So for the next 15 minutes, I just started talking randomly about the things that I knew off my head. It wasn't off the teleprompter that we had. It wasn't any of that. Just tried to make it shine, tried to have a laugh about it, tried to be human about it. And then before you know it, co-host jumped on. He jumped with me. We, bantered back and forth. And then they eventually had the show back up. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm at a trade show in San Francisco for a completely different client, completely different reason. And this random dude comes up to me and he's like, you're that guy in Germany. When everything went wrong and you just made the show happen. That was so cool. And he was like really congratulating for me. To me, that was almost like, of all the celebrity stuff and all that stuff, that was like my biggest moment in my career, because it seems like, God, life does not always go according to plan. So whether it's in your career or your personal life, being able to make that pivot, be real, be in the moment, and continue going, I think is key. So that was something that was...
And being good at what you do, obviously, because you knew enough where you're like, all right, I got to keep the show running, and you're able to use your IT intellect and do all of those things for the audience.
Right, and I think that's a big part of my career as well, because to be honest with you, a large majority of my jobs, I could technically not know that much about it or not know anything about it, because you just learn the script, you do follow the prompts, you read the teleprompter, blah, blah, blah. But I think what's given me this endurance and taking it to that next level is that I have my own personal interest in these topics, that I want to learn about this stuff. I'm a geek about this stuff. I want to look things up on my own. I want to stay aware of what's happening in the world, whether it be technology, even from technology to celebrities to politics to science to fashion to food, whatever. And I think the more and more that you're connected in life, the more dynamic you can be with other humans in human situations. So I think that's been pretty beneficial, even though the job doesn't necessarily require that all the time.
Right. I've realized, though, that when you're hosting, to be aware of many faceted things, whether or not it's your interest, is great to connect with another human being. And I think that you kind of understand that as well. Like, no matter where you are at that moment, to connect with someone just on maybe one slight thing, or you both like one TV show. Right? All of a sudden, the person is like in your hand,
Totally.
And so you do so many different things, from red carpets to game shows to, convention speaking, presenting a new product, doing all of these things. Which one do you feel, as a host, is the hardest for you to do? Because I've realized, compared to doing TV shows and red carpets to me is a big task. It's not as easy as it looks. And so I would love to know, to you, which one is one that you're like, oh, okay, this one I gotta really be right here for.
Honestly, I think that's why I give so much kudos to you for being able to do this in-studio stuff. I've done a lot of on-camera, in-studio type of stuff. For me, that is the hardest, because I don't have 9,000 people in front of me in a massive auditorium. I don't hear the applause. I don't have people I can throw to and make a star in that moment. So everything is just in that camera and that lens right there. So it all has to be passion that I imagine in my mind and convey it right on this, lifeless lens. But you need to imagine what's on the other side of that. So that, for me, I think, as being a live guy, is something that I continually work on, and that's the thing, even when you're on camera, you are connecting with people. It's just a different way, right? Yeah. You have to know on the other side of that, it could be even more people than 9,000. It could be hundreds of thousands. It could be millions of people. So being able to process that in your mind and then convey that in a quiet studio with lights on you, with no one around, and still be able to imagine that you're having that impact, I think that's the key. But not always easy. Yeah,
you prefer looking at people.
For sure.
I love camera work.
Yeah.
But, we all have our thing, and that really kind of signifies your career. Now, what is it for you right now? So you've done a lot in your past. You're still going now. What is your routine like? How are you getting gigs and maintaining your presence as one of the top MCs that you can be?
Great question. So it's a process, and it has developed over the years. Now, I would say, I have a bunch of agents, first of all.
Right.
This realm, for the most part, is something that you sign a lot of non-exclusive contract agreements with a whole plethora of various agents. Sometimes it's like a mom with a computer. They get you a job once every 3 years, and that's great. Um, but the truth is, now at this point, deep in my career, I would say over 75% of my work is direct. So that direct work comes from referrals. It comes from seeing me at shows on the trade show floor. It comes from YouTube, personal website, referral from a colleague, things like that. And that's what really keeps it going. I mean, there's no better advertisement for yourself than people seeing what you do in real time. And then it's about nurturing those relationships, right? Because especially in this corporate world, especially with like IT and tech stuff, people are moving from job to job all the time. So they'll leave one opportunity, will go out the door, and then you'll hear 2 years later, oh, hey, remember me? I now work over here, and can we have you for this? So that's why you don't want to burn bridges out there. It's in life in general, but especially in the corporate life. But just the way it plays out, yeah. These days, I'm still at it. I'm doing a lot of hype man stuff. Hype man stuff is amazing. I was just a hype man for Flo Rida about a year ago. For Montel Jordan, this is how we do it. Getting people hyped. That's a lot of fun. And another thing on the complete opposite side of that of what I do is like these stone cold technical scripts for like physicians, radiologists, engineers. I take a lot of excitement in breathing life into topics that are normally very dry. Because if you think about it, so many of these technical scripts, whether it be engineering or something about some piece of medical equipment, this is crazy. People would think just from like 150 years ago, this is absolute sorcery. Like they would never even imagine that humans would even be able to accomplish this stuff. So I think it's really unfortunate, especially if you look at our schooling. Think about how many classes you sit in talking about biology or chemistry. I mean, these are literally helps you decode existence itself and like understand how the universe and how everything works and what the ingredients of life are and how it interacts and the magic of it. But how many times are you sitting there in the classroom and it's like, you're just going through the motions. It sounds so dry. I think as a kid, I resisted that so much. A big part of my career and who I am is because of how bored I got in these classes. I was homeschooled till 6th. I have kind of a unique childhood. One of the pieces being I was homeschooled until 6th grade. And then when I actually went to real school, I'm like, why are we here so long? Why are these teachers so boring? Why? What are we doing? So that feeling, and the Charlie Brown teacher, and it's like, wah, 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 just talking in the background. That's like how they sounded to me. So I think half my whole career is based on don't be the Charlie Brown teacher.
Yeah, I don't think you can be. You have too much personality and you're too great at speaking. And, to you, it's having fun with communication, which is great. For sure. Now, what does your next decade look like for you? What is your goal? Where do you want to be? You've done a lot of things already, while also being an actor, a voiceover actor, a commercial actor, a model, being into fashion, and also delving in the world of photography and that being behind the camera. What is the mark that you're trying to leave behind? Who is Madison Alexander?
Getting real deep now later in the segment. It's a really good question. So it's pretty clear in my mind what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And up till now, the overwhelming majority of my career has been taking other people's material and making it shine, right? For other companies, for other solutions, for even just for entertainment purposes. I am moving into a point in my life now where I want to start creating my own content, speaking on my own content, creating training programs based on my own content, and really trying to like impact people and move forward. And to be honest, there's many themes that I have, want to impact people with, but I know what the main one I'm going to start with is, and it is anxiety, okay? Whether it be, public speaking. They say public speaking is like number one or number two most common fear of people, and I have it. I've never gotten over it. I was nervous sitting out here before I came on. I've been doing this for 20 years. So I understand what it is to feel this anxiety, right? But also I know what it is to push through it. So I want to help people where it be from a sales point of view. A lot of people get anxiety when they're trying to do sales. People get travel anxiety. My goodness, I used to have so much travel anxiety. The idea, I've taken so many international flights. Even just Airbnb. I've stayed in over 70 individual Airbnbs. I've stayed in hundreds of hotels. I've been to almost 30 countries, tons of repeats. And before I couldn't even sleep on a plane or basically use a public bathroom. It was all like freaking me out. So over time, I was able to confront those things and kind of build upon them, and here we are today. So I feel like I can help people with that stuff. Anxiety in relationships, intimacy, all these things. These are all things that I've had anxiety about, and it probably will never fully go away, but I've been able to confront those things, and I think I have some tools and some stories that will help people in the process. So that's hopefully what we can do. Hopefully have fun in the
on the world. You're teaching your way through multiple ideas and situations.
Totally.
And those things.
And in the past, I've done a lot of volunteerism, and and to be honest, and when COVID hit, I think I got more internalized, and that's one of the things that now I'm like, dude, you need to get back in the game. I used to volunteer my time a lot and be part of a lot of nonprofits and things of that nature. And to be honest, I haven't been doing it as much lately as I would like to. And so time to get back in the game a little bit.
I think this interview has helped you be inspired again to go do these things. So you've heard with my other interview, I always ask the final question for all of my guests.
Yes.
Because I love having it sum up everything that you had just talked about and kind of inspire our audience.
Awesome.
And that question is there a philosophy that you live by?
I think there's probably several, but I think the main thing kind of ties into what we just talked about, and I would say, don't let fear be your boss. Mm-hmm. Don't let fear be your boss. It's just one voice of many that are in our consciousness, in our brain, in our body. Just like when I was going for that speech that I said that I won class president, or my first presentation that I did 20 years ago, the anxiety and the nervousness inside me was overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally hormones, testosterone, all the different cortisol, all the different epinephrine, all these different hormones your body produces, and stress is all there. But there's also another voice that likes to do it, that feels like you achieve something when you move past that. Let that voice be your guide. Don't let fear be your boss. Let it be just another voice in there to evaluate, and you get to choose if you're going to let that take front stage or not. Yes,
I absolutely love it, because that's how you overcome every single thing. And talking in front of people, that is a fear within itself, and you do that every single day. So it's been an honor having you here. Please tell everyone where they can find you, where they can reach out, ask questions, inquire about a job, etc.
Absolutely. If you're doing the social medias, you can see me at Madison the Host, Madison the Host, all one word. That's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's Twitter, now known as X, obviously. On YouTube, you can find me at Mr. Madison LV, Mr. no dot Madison LV, like Las Vegas. Or actually, I think it's Mr. Madison Alexander, pardon me, Mr. Madison Alexander, Mr. Madison Alexander. And check out my website. That is also MrMadisonAlexander.com. Feel free, holler at your boy, and hopefully we can bring some fun and some connection to your audience.
He's very easy to find, guys. And I did my research. All his stuff comes up, and one will lead to another. So you can't miss him. He's actually like Madison Alexander the Great. So,
Alexander the Great.
It's your new nickname.
That is very nice of you.
But thank you so much. It's an honor being here. I hope that you enjoyed this interview. I enjoyed you here. It's a pleasure having someone at his level of doing what we're doing here, sitting here, enjoying his time and being interviewed. It's a lot different for a host. Thank you so much.
You're amazing.
Oh, stop.
Hope we can do it again.
I know. I hope so. I'd love to have you back.
Look at the fit, too. You guys see the fit?
Halloween.
I should have worn something different. It's amazing. It's awesome.
But everyone, don't go anywhere. I'm not done talking. But everyone, please round of applause for Madison Alexander. Hype him up. Let's be his hype man. And when we come back, again, like I said, my mouth will still be running. So do not go anywhere.